Hey y'all, this lesson is about estimating square roots. You like my pointer? Estimating square roots. We've been working with square roots and square cubes, and so far we've been working with perfect squares, but today the focus is what if it's not a perfect square? How do you estimate the square root if it's not a perfect square? So you should know all the perfect squares from 1 through 15. You know that chart that you put in your notes from 1 through 15? If you don't have this memorized, then you want to have that chart handy so you can go back and look at it. We're going to be looking at non-perfect squares. Non-perfect squares, so numbers that are not on that chart. And the way you do this is you're going to choose two closest perfect squares to the number. And then out of those two, you're going to pick the one that's the closest. And then this symbol right here, it's like a squiggly equal sign. We're going to use this symbol because it means about. These are estimating, so it's about. It's not equal to, but it's about. So we're going to use this symbol. So let me show you some examples. All right, example 1, estimate the square root of 12. So 12 is not a perfect square. It is not on that list of 1 through 15. So you have to pick the two closest perfect squares. So the two closest perfect squares to 12 are 9 and 16. Those are the two closest perfect squares. 12 is in the middle. So which one is 12 closer to? 12 is 3 away from 9, and it's 4 away from 16, so that means it's closer to 9. Since it's closer to 9, we want to take the square root. So what is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is 3. So that means, you've done all the work, that means that the square root of 12 is about 3. Notice we used about. It's a little more than 3 because 12 is bigger than 9, so it's probably like 3.2 or 3.3 or 3.4, but it's closer to 3 than it is 4. So this is how you estimate square roots. You pick the two closest, then you narrow it down to 1, and then it's about that. Let's do another one. All right, example 2. Estimate the square root of 65. Notice 65 is not a perfect square. It is not on that chart that we made. So the two closest perfect squares to 65, I know that 64 is a perfect square because 8 times 8 is 64. And then the next perfect square would be 8 times 8, so it would be 9 times 9 is 81. And this one's pretty easy. 65 is closer to what? Closer to 64. So what is the square root of 64? 8. And again, we're just using the principal square root right now, just using the principal. So that means the square root of 65 is about 8. And it's probably not much more than 8, 8.01, 8.1, because 65 is very close to 64. So it's very, very close to 8. So you try number 3, estimate the square root of 42. Just like I've shown you, pick the two closest square roots, and pick one of those that's the closest, and then round it off to that square root. So pause the video, find the square root of 42, estimate the square root of 42, and then press play when you're ready to hear the explanation. So I found the two closest perfect squares were 36 and 49, and the one that it's closest to. So 42 is 6 away from 36, and it's 7 away from 49. It's 6 here and 7 here. So that means it's closer to 36. It's not always going to be closer to the bottom one, but these happen to be. It's closer to 36. So the square root of 36 is 6, which means if we're estimating, the square root of 42 is about 6. So do you think it's more than 6? Yes, it's more than 6 because 42 is more than 36. So it's actually, this one's probably really close since it's 6 away and 7 away. That one's probably really close to 6.5. It's probably like right close to be in the middle, 6. 6 and 7, 6.5. All right, so example 4. Is the square root of 37 more or less than 6? Prove it. Square root of 37 more or less than 6. So the square root of 37, it is a non-perfect square. Non-perfect, meaning it doesn't come out to be a whole integer. It's going to be some sort of decimal. So my two closest are 36 and 49. It's very close to 36. So what is the square root of 36? 6. Is the square root of 37 more? Yes, because 37 is more than 36. Therefore, the square root of 37 would be greater than 6. So the answer is more. And when it says prove it, this is the reason. Square root of 37 is greater than the square root of 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. So that must mean it's going to be bigger than 6. Just a little number sense there for you. So this last example you try on your own. Is 9.5 a good estimate for the square root of 90? Is 9.5 a good estimate for the square root of 90? Why or why not? Do you think 9.5 is a good estimate for the square root of 90? The square root of 90 is not a perfect square, so it doesn't come to be just one whole number. And then be ready to share your reasoning in class tomorrow. We're going to go over this question in class, and I want to know, what do you think? Do you think it's a good estimate? Why? Do you not think it's a good estimate? And why not?